Presenteeism. The term describes people who continue to work even when they're sick. When ill, workers are less productive, take longer to recover, and risk spreading their illnesses to coworkers. Yet, Carol Evans of Working Mother magazine says presenteeism is on the rise. As cold and flu season rapidly approaches, we asked her why.
Since American workers, generally speaking, aren't covered by paid sick days, they tend to come and show up at work when they're sick. And so what you have is, instead of absenteeism, you have people who should be absent because they're not feeling well and they might be contagious and they have all kinds of issues going on, who actually struggle in and get to work because they can't afford to lose a day's pay.
How does this affect women differently from how it affects men?
Mothers are primary caregivers of the whole family. We call them the family health managers. And so mothers are really struggling to make sure they get to work, no matter what, at almost any cost to themselves. Fathers are a lot less involved, generally speaking, in the health care of the family. So they're probably less likely to be participating in presenteeism.
What percentage of companies offer paid sick leave, and how much do they offer?
The companies on the 100 best companies list, generally speaking, do offer somewhere between 7 and 14 days of paid sick leave. I'm not sure what the average is for all companies, but I can tell you that in everything that the 100 best companies do, they're much, much better than the rest. So you have a large number of companies that offer nothing, no paid sick leave. And I hear about it from our readers all the time. People call me and complain and are worried about their sick days and lack of pay for those sick days.
So should the government do something about this, in your opinion?
Well, we're supporting a mandated 7 days of paid sick leave. It would be nice to create an even playing field for all companies so that some companies aren't competing against others without this safety net for their employees. And I believe Senator Dodd is introducing a bill in Congress, or has introduced a bill in Congress, to support 7 days of paid sick leave for companies with 15 or more employees. That would go a long way toward elevating the United States to the level of many other countries, because there's at least 140 countries out there that do have mandated paid sick leave, and we're just not being competitive.
We didn't get data, it just occurred to me, on what percent of people showing up sick do or don't have paid sick leave. But what if a lot of them are doing it because they're ambitious and they're trying to help their companies who need them?
Well, there's several different points. It's very complex. Not only that, I have paid sick leave, where I run my office, but I find some moms don't want to use the paid sick leave for themselves. They'd rather use it if the children get sick. And there's always a time limit. You can't give it forever and ever for open-ended. So everybody's got a different thing. There are also times at work when, if somebody calls in sick, oh my goodness, it's a day stopper, and what can people do? So I think there's all sorts of different things. There's also people who use every single sick day without ever batting an eye, and others kind of look askance. So I think it's a very complex thing, very difficult for people to manage.
Well, if Dodd's bill were to get approved,
right.
I don't know what the chances are, but right, I wouldn't think they would be great. But is it fair to mandate paid sick leave in situations where people will game the system and use it when they're not sick?
Every other country does have paid sick leave. I think we should have paid sick leave. There's no question about it. Dodd's bill cuts off at 15 employees, where your biggest problem is always 15 employees or less anyway. The smaller the company, the less apt to have those benefits. And probably to get it passed, my days of family medical leave, that number's going to go way up. And so you're going to end up passing something that's going to apply to companies probably that already have it. And the real issue is, how do you get small companies to do it? And I think they really...
Why not tax incentives?
I still don't get the philosophy of every time something happens that you don't like, we're going to go get the government to force you to do it. I mean, I'm glad we're talking about small companies here. This is something that not everyone can bear. We want to give sick leaves. I've got a very small organization, and we have, I think, 7 days paid sick leave, and some people take it and some people don't. But for heaven's sake, don't make the government mandate it. How many more people are you going to put out of work just by doing that alone?
Well, look what it took for us to get the Family Medical Leave Act, and that's where Americans are supposed to have a soft spot. And what did we get? We got unpaid leave, And we were joyous at getting that. But yes, this is what happened. It meant that women who were well off enough to be able to take unpaid leave took it. I tell you, I'm so desperate for sick leave for middle income and poor people now that if they told us all we could get through the Congress were some unpaid days, I'd almost say let's take it and work our way up. This is just inhumane.
But what makes it difficult when you're dealing with small businesses, when you government mandate paid sick leave like that, is whether they can economically sustain paid sick leave. Number one, are you willing to accept lower wages then to make up for the paid sick leave and the forced benefits and all the other things for these smaller companies? I'm not talking about big business corporations that can sustain something like this financially. That's where you run into a danger of having the government mandate things like this. But I think there's something else interesting about this debate, that we are such a performance-driven society that everything is all about how you perform, how you're judged on that, and finding self-worth in your work. I think that's something else that may drive presenteeism, that so many people feel pressure to have to be the best all the time, which is okay. I come from an area, and New York metro area, where you've got to be, or there's 10 other people who will. But there's a certain amount of balance, though, that goes along with that. But I think that that's a fascinating phenomenon about what the attitude is behind why people feel as though they must be there under all circumstances, no matter what.
Well, my philosophy is stay home. I don't want your germs. I don't want to get sick, and I don't want to bring it home to my family. Stay home. Work from home if you've got to do that.
If you can. I think there's also the feeling you're part of the team, though, and you don't want to let the team down. So I mean, where does it?
Doesn't it depend on your job whether you have some critical function that you can't work from, or a face-to-face function. Their factory workers can't work from home, and if they're essential and the line goes down because they're not there, isn't that a whole other decision?
It's huge. It's huge. So that's what I think. It's so easy to say this is a huge problem. Let's do something about it, but it's very, very complex, and every HR department's going to have a different way.
I understand the country is so focused on productivity.
Yeah.
If in fact what makes people productive is that they feel halfway well, then you would think we could get at least to some version of this bill.
Well, if Hillary Clinton, as we talked about earlier, does win the White House in 2008, and if as many political strategists and pundits are predicting Democrats increase their share in the House and Senate, will you see mandated sick leave?
You will see more pressure on Hillary Clinton than you would see on a male if she wins the White House, precisely because she's a mother and she's a female, and she will be expected to especially understand.
Well, nobody will get sick because everyone will have universal health care. So there's no opposition if Hillary Clinton wins.
And we'll put a lot of women-owned businesses out of business because they won't be able to pay for this.
That's right. Say that again.
We'll put a lot of women-owned businesses out of business because they will not be able to pay for this.
That's right.
I think they will. They all said that about family medical leave, and we did 2 years of hearings afterwards and couldn't find one business that went down.
All right, that's it for this edition of To The Contrary.